Space. Science fiction is one of those things that it's been kind of present in the hobby since really early on, but it's never quite really penetrated the overall hobby consciousness, other than maybe D6 Star Wars, which was really, really popular for a while. But other than that, science fiction doesn't necessarily seem to break through as a game setting, and yet we keep making attempts. How many editions of Traveller have there been? And some are very different to the ones previous. Starfinder, is it a success or not? I quite like it, like the idea of it anyway. The implementation of the D20 system that it uses and so on. Yeah, I have a bit of a soft spot for Starfinder. But why hasn't it particularly taken off and succeeded massively? If you think of the big games you can name, probably Dungeons and Dragons, probably Pathfinder, probably Vampire, probably Call of Cthulhu, maybe, and of the science fiction games, maybe Star Wars, but it's been through so many different incarnations, not necessarily particularly popular. Yeah, and maybe Traveller, but that's well down into the maybes. It's unfortunate. When it comes to science fiction, I had planned originally to do a whole bunch of stuff, and a bunch of stuff for Traveller and so on. It was going to be called All These Worlds, and that was meant to be just generic supplementary material, and then I kind of worked that into a setting, which was one called Fermi's Paradox, where humans burst out into the universe, settled everything, then there's some kind of disaster, screwed up FTL travel, and then after quite a while it comes back, and then you're rediscovering these lost human civilizations and alien life and alien intelligences, which are actually humans that have taken divergent evolutionary paths, genetically engineered paths and so on, kind of partially inspired by Dougal Dixon's Man After Man rather than Life After Man. Never got round to it. That kind of hard sci-fi setting, and I'm not sure there's the interest there. Yeah, there's a few moderately successful sci-fi games. I mean, I guess it depends whether you count near-future dystopia like Cyberpunk as being that or not. But as it stands, I think the only real science fiction game I've produced is Machinations of the Space Princess. It's kind of a weird one. I was kind of challenging myself to do something derived from old school D&D, which goes against most of my instincts. I'm not a fan particularly of D&D, particularly in its older forms, and the old school, I appreciate the DIY side of it, the kind of punk rock side of it, but the system never really did it for me. But I liked the idea of going back to basics and doing something with that, and I ended up creating this quite sprawling, customizable rule set, which has been remarkably popular for something that I wasn't even sure about doing in the first place. So I guess challenging yourself is good, though when it comes to the rules and so on, I guess they seem quite conventional and normal, but for me that was a big step outside my comfort zone, and trying to create something that created the kind of the atmosphere of the wacky, gonzo, anything goes sort of sexy, sleazy style that was present in the 70s when D&D was invented, and when Metal Hurlant, or heavy metal, was kind of at it, like one of its earlier peaks. So it seems to have been successful. I don't know. Do I revisit sci-fi? Do I try and do some of these things? It's hard to get the interest, but then Machinations did. And I quite want to do something like a Machinations toolkit for Starfinder or something. And I would like to revisit All These Worlds and Fermi's Paradox. But we'll see. Science fiction, it's a tricky beast when it comes to games. I don't know why there isn't a bigger audience within gaming for science fiction. You would think it would be a kind of natural Venn diagram overlap. You know, dice systems, probabilities, mathematics, and sci-fi nerds. But apparently not. Don't know why. Any ideas?